Okay, so in my last video, I promised I would talk about the basic requirements of thesis writing for master's degree students, for PhD students, and for first degree students. Concept of thesis writing, academic writing, as far as I can see, or from my perspective, is the same, except that the degree of expertise, the degree of depth of research increases as you move from the first degree through to the second degree through to the third degree. But the basic requirements are the same. What are these basic requirements? And I keep getting surprised. I shouldn't be really, because unfortunately, I hold the view that the first 15, 20 years of education does not prepare a student adequately for research work. Because, as I said in my last video, the first 15, 20 years are all largely about memorization. It's not so much about problem solving, even if you have given a problem in your years, your undergrad years or secondary or primary school years. A method is given for you to solve, and everything is prescribed. It's prescription kind of learning. Computers can do that. And sometimes in my severely radical self, especially in this information age and computer age, I ask myself whether this mnemonics is really necessary, primarily because it does not prepare the student for research work. The mnemonic approach, the banking approach, the regurgitation approach does not prepare the student for problem solving. In many cases, it prepares him or her to describe a problem. And this is totally different, 180 degrees different from research work, because research work can be described as problem solving. And so when a student has been exposed for his formative years, just for the regurgitative mnemonics method, in my view, this is severely destructive. Because interested students in this information age can absorb the information from several different sources online. What is needed is to develop the student's problem-solving ability. And this is innate. This is God-given. Sometimes there's a problem and your 5-year-old son just chips in with a solution. It's innate. But when you go into the classroom, in some systems you have a fixed syllabus, and there's one agreed, it might have worked for years, decades, centuries, but a 10-year-old student, 15-year-old student, someone can have a fresh idea on how to solve a problem. And this is not allowed in the structured form of the syllabus. And so the system, undergrad system, or the educational system prior to graduate or postgraduate studies, however you call it, is, in my view, almost destructive, is almost irrelevant in this modern world. And it does not prepare the student or develop the student's research capabilities on a large scale, generally speaking. Of course, there are exceptions. So along the line, primary, secondary has to do some level of research and so, but on a large scale, structure produces stricture, and stricture uh, strangles creativity, stricture strangles innovation, stricture strangles, and sometimes we point out to the more successful people who have not had this strictured training. So this is the system, my dear master's degree students, PhD students, and first degree students trying to write your thesis. In the mnemonic system, mnemonics comes from the Greek word mnemo, or to remember. So it's all about remembering, just like a computer. The educational system, in my view, reduces you to the level of a computer. And in many cases, a computer can do the remembering better than human beings. So we need to adapt and adopt as technology increases, improves. By a mnemonic system or banking system where information is just banked and piled up, there is little opportunity for problem solving. And this is precisely what is required in many research works. So you need to be able to make that mental shift from the banking system, in which there's little problem solving required, to a different system, research system, where the main element that your examiners are going to look out for is a problem you've solved. Now, in the banking system is in my view, a terrible system. It spoon feeds you, it makes you lazy, apart from developing your memory largely. So, problems may be presented to you, but in research, you are supposed to identify your own problem and solve it. The identification of a problem is in itself is academically taxing. I had one student ring me. I would say, "Oh, choose a topic for me." We don't just choose a topic. And I'll make another video on how to choose a topic for your thesis, because I don't want to make long videos. So you need to be able to make that mental shift, unfortunately, from a system where problems are given to you to trying to identify your own problem. In your master's degree thesis, in your PhD thesis. A similar way we can talk about this identification of a problem is a research gap. Research gap. All over the world. Whenever I meet a master's degree student, PhD student, writing, it's, oh, wow, I enjoy research work. It's so enlightening. learning is, for me, is not just for acquisition of titles and degrees behind your name. It's light. Learning is light. It guides your feet. It helps you make the right decisions. It helps you learn from others' mistakes. And I enjoy it. So I ask, I say, what? My first question, doesn't matter what subject you are studying, whether physics, chemistry, biology. I have a background in both arts and science, so I'm comfortable in both areas. It doesn't matter what you're studying, whether drama or geography or theology, whatever you're studying, astrology, astronomy. The first question I ask, and I never, almost never, get a straight answer, is what is your research gap? Now, every time I ask this question, the students go into long, complicated, frightening words, big words, and huge concepts on what they are studying, but they cannot give me their research gap. And sometimes I ask the same questions, if they are friends of mine, for days, weeks, months. They seem to have no clue. Neither do they get back to me to ask me how to get this research gap. And this research gap is the basic element required in any thesis. And so we need some kind of academic, I wouldn't say revolution, academic catalysis, catalysm, whatever the word is, catalyst, to help the students to understand what it is that is required of them. You've got students working on their, sadly, master's degree for years and years, gone for extensions and more extensions, extra cost, extra time, and you ask them the basics. They can't tell you. They cannot tell you. Yet, if you understand this, I just spent 4 months with some students of mine. And I'm not blaming my students. No, I'm not blaming them. No. I understand the system. I'm a product of the system. I understand it. I analyzed it. You may agree with me. You may disagree. But for 3 months, I said, give me a research gap. And then they would regurgitate some material that is nothing critical about the work. And then I would take it and then would go through it and then would explain what the research gap is. And I'm patient because we have destroyed the God-given curiosity, God-given interest, God-given spontaneity, freshness of education. It's a dusty subject which one has to go through for a better life. Nothing exciting, or very little exciting for many, many students. What is exciting about rote learning? So I'm not blaming them. So I take it and we go explain, and then they bring me more old material, which is everywhere. It's just edited material, so forth. And this is something that occurs because making that transition from being given problems to solve in the bachelor's, secondary school, etc., lower level, to finding your own problem for some students I enjoy the literature review of many students. I read it in all sorts of subjects because I'm a thesis coach. That's what I do, postgraduate study. I enjoy it. I learn a lot. I learn so many things, light, and so I get astounded at my own ignorance. It's fascinating. 15 pages of literature review, in which literature is not really reviewed, is difficult. Because you may disagree with me, but the literature review should elicit a research gap, which is very often missing or not clear. And so, the students, you're listening to me, master's degree, PhD. I want you to be very, very clear. You may not be able to get a research gap immediately. You may not be able to answer my question immediately, but ensure that within a reasonable period of time, you are able to clearly state and headline, sub-headline it very clearly for any examiner, because examiners are busy people. They're doing research themselves. They are lecturing. They are traveling. And so it's not everything in your thesis that an examiner is possible. Nobody's perfect. Therefore, the certain key points have to be highlighted, dramatized. Academics don't like drama. You understand what I mean? You want to put your research gap in such a way that however busy an examiner is, he cannot say that he missed it. It's one of the key points when you go to the hospital. Vital statistics are taken. The human body is very complex. There's a lot of information that the doctor would need, but they take the vital. Vital comes from the word life, Latin. Okay, so in another video I talk about the importance of the trinity of languages, English, Latin, and Greek. But it's vital statistics. Or not statistics. Yeah, statistics. Your temperature, your blood pressure, your weight, age, so on. And so it is with thesis. It may not be, maybe not all examiners are going to read every line from beginning to end. But there are certain vital elements. And the vital elements always seem to be elusive. Every time I ask this question, where is your research gap? I'm met with a loud silence. So be sure to focus on it, because the thesis at master's degree level, at PhD level, is where you are supposed to produce something new. So your research gap, in theory, asks a question that we can say asks a question that no one has asked before, or asks a question that no one has answered before. These elicit newness, freshness, uniqueness. And this concept of newness, again, is completely 180 degrees different from the banking system, the regurgitation system, the mnemonic system, memorization system, computerization system that unfortunately we subjected you to for 20 years. You need to make a complete 180 degree paradigm shift. Everything is old in the banking system. It's all known. You're supposed to regurgitate, reproduce old information. There's a syllabus, there's a marking scheme. Everything is designed around oldness, known information, basics of information. I find that aspect of the educational system rather, it assumes that the student has an empty head and it has to be filled with the knowledge that has been so far um, researched. It assumes that the student is not yet largely, of course, there are some institutions that allow for some research. But it doesn't assume interaction with the knowledge. It just assumes that they should. The main function is to absorb it before interacting later, and that is unnatural. That's not how the human mind works. And so everything is old, and then suddenly, especially in the master's degree, you finish your 1-year coursework or whatever length of coursework it is, and then you're expected to switch overnight with simply a few weeks course in research methods. This is expecting too much from the student. It doesn't work every time. And so I think that in my most radical moments, we need to really focus more on research from the earlier stages, develop their research skills from the earlier stages. That would be of benefit to them, benefit to society. It will be more exciting, more interesting. But for the students, your thesis is different from the essays you used to write a day in the life of a CD, a day in the life of how you spent your holiday. A thesis is different. Those were preparatory works. And as I said, newness and freshness is key for postgraduate work. I received a PhD thesis from a different country, and I kept looking for the research gap. The work said a lot to me. It said that the student had put in a lot of effort, but that supervision was absent. That is what I saw from the work, because it had gone through several the editorial level or editing level was very high, the self-expression. So either the student put in a lot of effort or he just lifted it from somewhere, but I found no evidence of plagiarism. And so my feeling was that he had put in a whole lot of effort for 4 years, but it was not what we wanted. We wanted a research gap. We didn't want, sort of edited the current material that was circulating, sort of edited it nicely, like an editor, from different sources. It's not really what we want. We want to solve a problem. We want a research gap. We want a new contribution. And if there's no research gap, there can be no new contribution. And there can therefore be no certification. But sometimes, students are passed for effort and so on and so forth. Okay, so I don't want to talk too long. I've gone over my 10-15 minute mark. I get excited. But these are some of the basic elements for master's students, PhD students writing their thesis that examiners look out for. So be sure, if you can't answer the question immediately as to what your research gap is, focus on it. Be sure to be very, very, take time to understand what it is, how to achieve how to get a research gap. And then you have a chance of making what we call a new contribution. So lingua franca, common language of the academic everywhere you go, and it doesn't matter what subject it is, new contribution to the current debate. And if you focus on this phrase, it will guide you, it will save you a lot of time, and it will get you to give us what we want. A lot of students have no idea. They try to fill the pages. They say, well, I finished the first chapter, I finished the second chapter. That's not what we want. We want a new contribution to the current debate. Not ancient debate, current debate. So it begins with the research gap. Don't ignore it, like many of my friends. Sometimes you ignore your supervisor and it turns out to be your examiner. That's tough, because in the examination room he might have been prompting you, but he did not know that he will turn out to be your internal examiner or external examiner. Okay, so very, very important, very, very critical. Discuss this with your supervisors. You can think of a research gap as a problem you want to solve. And when we say a problem, new problem, there's no point in solving a problem that has been solved already, unless you're going to solve it in a new way. Okay, so that is what your examiners are looking for, and that is why your supervisors, you write 3-4 pages and they just cancel out 3, and you're very furious. It's tough. But if you can't answer the question, be sure to answer the question. A good friend of mine helped me a great deal, the two of us on the course, MPhil, and I had no clue how I was going to present oral examination. I had no clue at all. Nobody taught me anything. I didn't know anything. And this friend of mine outlined the steps. He started off with a problem statement. The problem statement is, roughly analogous to the research gap, we can say. There are differences, but, so he spoke about it, how to define it, and spoke about the research gap and so on. And he outlined what to do beautifully. He helped me a lot. When it came to the oral exam, I just followed the steps, his steps. But when it came to he himself, he could not define his research gap. He could not define his problem statement. In fact, throughout the examination, his problem kept changing all the time. It's I don't know what to say. His supervisor had earlier on tried to draw his attention to some of these things, but he ended up quarreling with the supervisor. So it's tough. It is what it is, and these are the expectations of research. I mean, why do research and produce information we know already? News, the word news is from the word new. We expect something new. So there's a sense in which in research work you are teaching your lecturers, your supervisors, because you're teaching them something new too. There's a sense in that. Whereas in the banking system, the mnemonic system, they are teaching you. It's a complete paradigm shift. Okay. But let me end here for the second time. Make sure that you have a research gap. I've talked to students working on his master's degree for 3-4 years. What's your research gap? Working on it for 3-4 years. They cannot tell me. I don't know what they call it. Maybe they call it something else. Maybe they can talk about the problem statement. But the problem statement, in my view, is a little bit, it's a subset of the research gap. I'll talk about that in another video. But make sure that your research gap is very well articulated and sub-headline clearly. All parts of the thesis are critical, I guess, but this is a good starting point. Okay, so drop your comments in the comments section below. Like if you like, and let's take it from there. Thank you.